Dear students, in the previous class of the ongoing online teaching learning process, we have discussed about the integration of cows and its various features. In continuation of the present chapter, Bhakti-Sufi traditions, today I'm going to discuss an interesting aspects of the history of the religious life of the medieval India. As per given syllabus of your text, this chapter is titled as Poems of Prayer, column, Early Traditions of Bhakti. My dear students, so far as the medieval Bhakti movements in India is concerned, it had a far-reaching impact and significant uh, impact on the Indian society. It awakened or gave a new sense and confidence among the common people. Here in this chapter, we are concerned with the early traditions of Bhakti movements in India, particularly in southern part of the country, namely Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Now, before going to the main topic, we must have the clear idea what actually the Bhakti means. The literary meaning of the word Bhakti is the devotional worship of God with the ultimate object of attaining moksha or salvation. Here, in this particular matter, scholars opine that the word Bhakti uh, is derived from its root word bhaj, meaning to adore. Historians classify the tradition of Bhakti into two categories. One is Shaguna Bhakti and another is Nirguna Bhakti. In fact, here lies the interesting aspects of this particular religious movement in India. Apparently, most of the devotees of the medieval Bhakti movement are associated with an iconic deities. For example, Shiva, Vishnu, and other avatars, or the incarnations and other forms of goddess or deity. That means they often conceptualize the deities in anthropomorphic forms. That is, the identities of deities as a human characteristics or visualize the deities as a human structure, a human being. Nirguna Bhakti was the worship form of worship form worship of form or shapeless or an abstract form of God. And Shaguna Bhakti is basically focused on the worship of Lord Vishnu, Shiva, and other incarnations uh, in a anthropomorphic visualization. And Nirguna Bhakti was worship of a shapeless or of an abstract form of God. Another interesting aspect of the early tradition of Bhakti was their method or style of expression of devotion. The saints of these Bhakti movements composed poem in praise of their God and They expressed their devotion through singing and chanting of self-composed songs and poems. That was perhaps an unique style of worshipping pattern. And in course of time, these saints or the devotees emerge as leaders. Generally, common people gathered around them and developed a community of devotees. Now, the Alvars and Nanners in Tamil Nadu. Alvars and Nanners were the early Bhakti devotees, or rather, you can say the early Bhakti movements in India. So, for the the Bhakti movement is concerned, the Alberts and these Nanners in Tamil Nadu were the earliest people of Bhakti movement in India. The Alberts and Nanners came into prominence in 6th century. 6th century. The Alberts were the worshippers of Lord Vishnu, and the Nanners were the worshippers of Lord Shiva. They traveled from one place to another, singing and chanting hymns in Tamil language by practicing the praising their gods. Their spontaneous efforts of the composition of poems and songs attracted the common people and the lower strata of the people, and gradually it became the part of the temple rituals. Many big temples were constructed. They had become pilgrimage centers in the south, and their singing and chanting became the part of the temple rituals. Here, another important aspects or important dimension of the Bhakti movement in South, the early Bhakti movement in South, the attitude towards caste. The Bhakti movement initiated by the Alvars and Nanners opposed the caste system and the dominance of the Brahmins. They moved to reform the caste system. That means they discarded the caste division of the people, caste division of the society. The caste division means the division of man in four classes of people, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. The Bhaktis hail from diverse social background such as Brahmanas, artisans, cultivators and even from the caste considered as untouchables. This is another important aspects of the early Bhakti movements in South, that the that was though they discarded the caste system in this particular movement of Bhakti. Brahmins were not remain aloof. Sometimes Brahmins also became part of the movements. We find a lot of Brahmin saints in the Tamil Bhakti movement. Particularly, here the word mentioning the name of a Brahmin who actively participated in Tamil movement was Tondara Tondaradipodi was a Brahmana by caste who actively participated in Tamil movement. And Nalayira Dipya Prabandham was the major anthologies of compositions by the Albers in Tamil language. It is considered as significant as the four Vedas in Sanskrit. That means the the self-composed hymns and the poems of Albertson in Tamil language was compiled an anthology named Nalayira Dibba Prabandham is 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 a significant text as considered by the Tamil peoples, and its importance was no less than the four Vedas of the Aryas in Sanskrit language. Tevaram was the devotional songs composed by the Nayanars in Tamil language. That means the not only the Alvars, the Nayanars who are the devotees of Shiva, Lord Shiva, also composed a number of devotional songs that have been compiled named as Tevaram. And now uh, the next part of special features of the early Bhakti movements in the South is the participation of women devotees in the movement. The most impressive feature of the Tamil Bhakti movement was the presence of women saints. Though in the later part, that is in the medieval time, we uh, we had the informations of the participation of women saints, for example, the Mirabai and others that will be discussed in our next class. In the south, particularly uh, from the Alvar Bhaktis or Alvar Bhakti saints, a woman named Andal was one of the most famous devotee of Lord Vishnu. That means she belonged to Albar community of the Bhaktis. She composed many devotional poems in Tamil, and her compositions are widely sung even today. One of the most significant women participants of the Bhakti movement in Tamil was known as Andal, and he composed number of devotional poems. Now, Karayakkal Ammayar was a woman of Nayanar Bhakti saint who adopted the path of extreme asceticism in order to attain salvation. Another Bhakti saint who basically belonged to the Nayanar community, Nayanar Bhakti community or Bhakti groups. Her name was Karaikal Amayar. The compositions of Amayar were preserved within the Nayanar traditions. Now, the relation with the state, with the Bhakti saints of Tamil Nadu. The powerful Chola rulers from 9th to 13th centuries supported the Bhakti movements in the south, making land grants and constructed temples of Vishnu and Shiva. Example of Shiva temples at Chidambaram, Tanjore, and Gangaikunda Cholapuram are the distinct example. During this period, bronze sculpture of Shiva flourished in great extent. That means the uh, the ruling families or the ruling families of the south, uh, particularly the Cholas and the Pandyas, sponsored or uh, acknowledge the Bhakti movement in South, and they made a huge ground, huge land grants, and constructed temples in the name of Vishnu and Shiva, etc. And during this period, a particular form of bronze sculpture of Shiva was flourished. Uh, for example, Nataraja image of Shiva, which is very popular in the south, are flourished in that period of time. Now, our next slide is Veerashaiva tradition in Karnataka. In the 12th century, a few religious movement was initiated. A new religious movement was initiated by Vasavanna, a Brahmin, 1106 to 68, who was initially a Jaina. He was a minister of court of the Chalukya rulers. The Saivas or the Saivites, the Saivism in the south, was popularly known as Veerashaiva tradition. In Karnataka, it was propounded by Basavanna, a Brahmin. Initially, he belonged to Jaina religion, and he was also a minister in the court of Chalukya ruler. His followers were known as Veerasaivas or Lingayats. They worship Shiva in his manifestation as Linga. Here also, the Lingayats challenged the idea of caste, or the classification of man on the Varna, on the basis of Varna. These have been discarded by the Lingayats. The Lingayats encouraged the practice which were rejected in the Dharma Shastras as the post puberty marriage and the remarriage of widow. Post puberty marriage and remarriage of widow was not permitted as per the tradition of Dharma Shastras, but Lingayats encouraged this practice and rejected the Dharma Shastra in this particular issue. And they question the theory of rebirth, Punarjanma. They ask a question of the acceptability of the theory of rebirth. That is, Veerasaivites or the Lingayats not accepted the theory of rebirth. The Vachanas in Kannada language are the major source to understand the Veerasaiva traditions of Karnataka. Basically, these are the sayings of the saints composed in Kannada men and women. My dear students, these are the basic structure, basic features, tentative features in a nutshell of the Bhakti traditions in South, particularly in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. In our next class, we will, in continuation of this chapter, we'll discuss about the Sufi traditions of Islam in medieval India. Thank you.